Evolution is a fundamental concept in biology that explains how organisms change over time, and is supported by an overwhelming amount of scientific evidence. Evolution is a scientific theory that explains how species change over time. The theory of evolution states that all living things are related through a common ancestry, and that species change over time through the process of natural selection. Natural selection is the process by which certain traits become more or less common in a population based on their ability to help individuals survive and reproduce. Charles Darwin is often credited with the development of the theory of evolution through his observations of the natural world during his famous voyage on the HMS Beagle. Darwin observed that different populations of animals on different islands had unique traits that allowed them to survive and thrive in their respective environments. He theorized that over time, populations with certain advantageous traits would become more common as they outcompeted other individuals for limited resources, eventually leading to the formation of new species. The theory of evolution is supported by an overwhelming amount of scientific evidence from multiple fields of study, including genetics, paleontology, biogeography, and comparative anatomy. One of the strongest lines of evidence for evolution is the fossil record. Fossils are the preserved remains or traces of organisms that lived in the past, and they provide a snapshot of the history of life on Earth. Fossils show that different species of organisms have existed throughout Earth's history, and that many species that once lived are now extinct. By comparing the anatomical features of fossils to those of modern organisms, scientists can infer how organisms have changed over time. Another line of evidence for evolution comes from comparative anatomy. Comparative anatomy is the study of the similarities and differences in the anatomical structures of different organisms. Scientists have found many examples of homologous structures, structures that have a similar anatomical structure but different functions, in different species, which suggest that these species share a common ancestry. Genetics is another important field of study that provides evidence for evolution. By comparing the DNA sequences of different organisms, scientists can infer how closely related they are. For example, the genetic sequences of humans and chimpanzees are very similar, suggesting that they share a common ancestor. Despite the overwhelming scientific evidence for evolution, there are still many common misconceptions about the theory. One of the most common misconceptions is that evolution is just a theory, and therefore not well supported by evidence. However, in scientific terms, a theory is a well-supported explanation that has been extensively tested and validated, and the theory of evolution is one of the most well-supported scientific theories in history. Another common misconception is that evolution is a random process. While there is an element of chance involved in evolution, such as mutations that introduce new genetic variation, natural selection ensures that certain traits become more or less common in a population, based on their ability to help individuals survive and reproduce. In conclusion, evolution is a fundamental concept in biology that explains how organisms change over time, and is supported by an overwhelming amount of scientific evidence. The theory of evolution states that all living things are related through a common ancestry, and that species change over time through the process of natural selection. By understanding the theory of evolution and the evidence that supports it, we can better understand the history of life on Earth and the diversity of living organisms that exist today.